In the battle over cliques, Dr. Gabor, we, the Jews, have no chance against the Palestinians. They are supported by almost 2 billion potential clickers. And you know, we, Jews, have only 6 million, always 6 million. And so, Dr. Gabor, it did not really surprise me that the talk you uploaded to YouTube 2 days ago has already received over 1 million views. Well done, really. It is a huge success. You knew how to make money from Hamas' horrific attack on Israel. You certainly took advantage of the fact that your fellow Jews were slaughtered in their beds, burnt, beheaded, and their bellies ripped open. Why not make money out of it? And you're just asking for a donation of some smoothie and some dollars in your Patreon account. And if you are already with me, you said, then I have a few more treats in the shopping cart, books and sweatshirts and everything. No doubt, you had a wonderful timing to exploit Jewish blood to your advantage. Look, Dr. Gabor, we have a rule in Israel never to attack Holocaust survivors, so I don't want to do that. In addition, you are probably not the only one making money off the blood of Jews right now. Well, since your name is known throughout the world and since you appear many times on this platform, I chose to talk to you today because I'm also on this platform, YouTube. In the video you uploaded this week, while the blood was flowing and the crimes were being committed, you replayed a conversation you had 2 years ago with some blogger about a previous conflict between Israel and Gaza. You gave a 12-minute conversation as well as a shorter video for about 2.5 minutes. Double the income from the same whore. Voila! A smart method of making money. Well, in the conversation you uploaded to YouTube this week, you showed complete blindness to what transpired on the 7th of October. I gather that you haven't really thought deeply about your timing, and as a Jewish Holocaust survivor, well, you probably have not really thought out about the moral meaning of the deed you did. Apparently, without awareness and without self-critique, you chose to upload the videos that support the Palestinians, making yourself a supporter of Hamas and a supporter of its actions. You surely made many hearts of Palestinians and Muslims happy. Yes, more than 1 million views and more than 50,000 likes. I will broadcast forever on YouTube and will never reach 1/4 of that achievement. So yes, in your videos, the supporters of Palestine found a Jewish Holocaust survivor who supports the Palestinians. The conversations you brought up again begin with the Holocaust. I was a Hungarian baby, you said. I survived. I became a Canadian citizen. And I heard that there was a land somewhere there where the Jews were promised that there would never be another Holocaust. I was very enthusiastic about that. I learned that Zionism gave a land empty of settlers to Jewish refugees who had just come out of the Nazi inferno. I supported Israel with all my heart, you said. But then you added that the dream began to fade away because you suddenly saw reality. You say things that are indeed true. The settlement of the land of Israel by Jews came with a colonial movement. True. The Jewish revival led to the disaster that established the Palestinian identity, an identity that was inscribed in what is known as the Nakba, the disaster of the expulsion. This is also true. You truthfully say that it is forbidden to say this word in Israel, but then you go on and explain that the Israelis say that every few years they need to cut the lawn in Gaza, that is, cut off heads of Hamas and the Islamic Jihad. Trust me, Gabor Mate, I lost you here. I've never heard such an expression in Israel. And so, the more I heard you, the more I realized that you did not come to present a complex analysis. You simply became a mouthpiece for the Palestinian cause, another Jew who cleanses himself of the sins of his people. We have had many Jewish self-haters in history, and we have such representatives in almost every Western university. You say, "Free Palestine, give the Palestinians independence." But what blindness was there in these statements? Yes, many Israelis voluntarily chose cultural blindness too, until the blinders were removed from their eyes on October 7th. And suddenly they saw what the ultimate meaning of Free Palestine was, and the meaning of granting independence to the Palestinians with Hamas. The meaning, put simple, is the destruction of Israel. The horrors of October 7th revealed the manifest dream of Hamas and the Islamic Jihad. And they also pointed out that this is probably also the hidden dream of much wider layers of the population in Gaza and the Palestinian territories in Judea and Samaria. And now, when you continue to speak the narrative of Free Palestine, you are not only supporting the independence of the Palestinian people, you also support the horrors of October 7th and in fact the vision of the destruction of the State of Israel. This is the Muslim vision, and as we have seen it, it is not a fantasy of some mentally ill or extremists. This is a national fantasy which says that there is not and will not be a Palestinian state with Jews living in the Middle East. It is a bit of a pan-Muslim fantasy, at least in the Shia world, where Iran anoints and trains the others. And here we saw that the fantasy got a chance to come true. And it did come true. But due to the partial realization of this dream of the annihilation of Israel, which was revealed in the massacre of October 7th, the eyes of many Israelis were opened. Now many more Israelis understand what they are up against and who they are fighting against. As a former senior minister from the left, Shai Piron, a rabbi in Israel, wrote, he decided to read the book Jihad and the Hatred of Jews by Matthias Kunzel. After reading it, I understood, he wrote, what we did not want to understand. This is not a political or national event. It is a religious war of madmen who do not deserve to be part of the human race. The destruction of Hamas is a moral and noble act which concerns not only the salvation of Israel, but the salvation of the world. But now, and due to Hamas' attempt to realize the fantasy of a world without Israelis and Jews, it will return the Palestinians to their founding trauma, Nakba 2. Tough luck, the people who allowed themselves to be enthused by the actions of Hamas and its promises, some by looting and some by beating, some by sword and some by hand, some by rape and some by slaughter. Well, the people who gave themselves to Hamas will apparently now experience Nakba 2. The reason is that the most brutal attack in the history of the State of Israel was to arouse the primal Israeli fear of a second Holocaust. Because the massacre last week illustrated to Israelis that what the Free Palestine supporters actually want actually involves a Holocaust for Israel. And therefore the same fear, the same Israeli existential anxiety, which unfortunately gained a reality check, is the one that will now lead to Nakba 2 for the Palestinians. And it seems that there is a broad feeling in the Israeli public that says that the people living in Gaza have chosen their destiny. Again, like many in the West, Dr. Gabor Mate, you too suppress culture, and you too do not wish to read the books on culture. You too probably deny culture. They are all human, you say, with innocent humanism invented in France. If only you give them Palestine, there will only be good in the world. And so, in uploading the conversation that accuse Israel of the Nakba and genocide, no less, you and many like you suppress the cultural dimension of Islam. My colleagues in the academia will forgive me for pointing out violence and the lust for blood, but there is such a thing as culture, and we have seen it at work in the Twin Towers in the USA, in the Bataclan in France, and in London and Paris terror attacks, and of course, in the countless attacks on Israel. This is not a war for freedom, Rabbi Shai Piron said. This is a religious war. And he was right. Yes, we must admit that the humanism of the West is denying culture. All human beings are born equal, say the noble political statements. And all people have the same rights. These are certainly wonderful ideas in a world where there are only Westerners. But we live in a world where there are other civilizations, other cultures, and there is no wonder not all of them love Western values. See Vladimir Putin and Russian culture. Look at China and human rights, and look at Islamic civilization. On the eve of the fall of the Twin Towers, the great Clifford Geertz wrote, "We try to convince the world of the Western liberal and democratic model, and they are simply not interested in it. So we should recognize that we are a tribe that has its own values and that we will always have to defend them." And then the Twin Towers were shot down by Islam. Yes, like many in the West, you too, Dr. Gabor Mate, seek to suppress the return of Muslim evil, which everyone was afraid of for a moment when they encountered the executions of ISIS a few years ago, or the beheading in France. So yes, Western humanism suppresses the recognition of cultural uniqueness of Islam, uniqueness that at the edges of what we saw on the 7th of October in Israel. But Israel never lived in this Western fantasy. Its culture is realistic and survivalist Jewish. So far, many Israelis have had difficulty trusting the Palestinians, and for this to be possible after the horrors, a new Palestinian political vision will be needed. There is a need for a new political leadership in Palestine, a leadership that can calm the return of the repressed of the Holocaust in the Israeli soul. And it will take years. Nevertheless, by virtue of the blood dripping, you enjoyed more than 1 million clicks, and you did it while broadcasting the vision of Hamas. Well done. True, in the war for the clicks, you will win. Maybe there will even be someone who will buy you a delicious smoothie and donate some Muslim dollars to your pocket. And for sure, many, especially on the Palestinian side, will now need your trauma books and lessons, because the people of Gaza chose Hamas and will now pay the price of Nakba 2. Trauma upon trauma. And you, Dr. Gabor, did you really choose to bring up these talks after the 7th of October to win clicks and money? Do you want to end your career by supporting the attack that befalls Israel? Did you now understand the meaning of the words Free Palestine? Did you now understand what the political program was like for the people in Gaza? Correct me if I'm wrong. Until the next time, I am Professor Gad Yair.